I would have been like, your awards and your medals.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Lais and The Coach.
Guys.
And we are back with Carrie.
Yay!
Yeah. So Carrie was on with us last week, and we were chatting about her journey to the stage, competing with the WBFF for the first time, and now it's all happened. So we are going to recap her weekend experience and see how it all went. So how'd it go, Carrie?
Well, it was okay. No, it was it was amazing. I think you have to be more specific.
So when we were on the show last, we talked about, why you had decided to compete and all of those things, and, the journey to the stage with all the setbacks that you had. And typically when we have competitors come back on, I think it's obviously you get on stage in your bikini and stuff, but I always like to talk about the weekend, like the weekend itself.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your take getting to the hotel, registration, and all the things that happened? So without leaving any details out, like
the full experience.
The full experience. So when did you get to the hotel?
So I love that we're going this way, because this is like what it's all about for me. It really interestingly, on Monday last week, I no matter how prepared you are, you said like the hotel, let me backtrack to Monday, right? I always think it's interesting, no matter how prepared you are for something, there's always that like punch list of the last minute details, right?
Mm-hmm.
So on Monday, I was like, you know what? I am setting my intentions really strong for the week to come. And when I teach people intentions, I'm always like, you got to remember, it's not just the tangible things, like I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this, but like pull it into mindset as well. Like, what is your intention for the week? So at the very beginning of the week, I said, my whole intention, and I adopted the mantra of like, feel this moment. Right, shout out to my friend Pitbull, because it's an homage to his, like, that song was so inspiring to me. But I really said, like, I'm gonna feel every single moment that comes my way this week, the good, the bad, the ugly, and there was definitely all of that mixed in. But that just allowed me to like slow down through the week and really embrace everything. And it's like I wanted to embrace the fact that I had to get up early to go to the makeup, that maybe I was running around and whatever the case may be. So. I say all of that because I got to the hotel on Thursday, 2 hours later than I was supposed to. Which is like, so I had this whole plan in my head that I wanted to be at the hotel by 3, which it was funny because at some point on Thursday, I'm like, I don't know why, because I had nothing to do. Like, it was just like, I think I wanted to be there because that's when the show started.
Right.
Yeah. The show started on check-in. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
The show doesn't start like when you get on stage.
No, which is what's the difference. I mean, and that's just the difference about the WBFF against every other federation, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, and Team Forever versus perhaps an experience by yourself or maybe even some other teams, right? Mm-hmm. Like for us, it's just an event from day one, mm-hmm. right? And I got to the hotel, so I was late getting to the hotel, but it was like, that's what I pulled in that like mantra of like, it's okay, I'm just getting, like, my daughter's flight was late coming in, we had some issues picking things up. I was like, I'm just gonna sink into the moment. I'm just gonna be okay with the fact that I'm late. And just go slow and really enjoy everything. So I did, and so we checked into the hotel probably around 4:30 on Thursday, and and then everything kicked into gear. A bunch of the girls arrived that night as well. So I think I ran into our first team member in the gym that night, and but it's just like such a great energy. Like everybody's so like alive and like excited. We worked so hard for it. Yeah. So I got there on Thursday night. Got myself all organized, everything placed where it needed to be. And that was just like, my language is like, it's game day,
right.
Like, I'm like, it's game day, people, it's time to go.
And you've been, unlike other people that are experiencing that weekend for the first time, you've been to other shows.
Yeah.
And you've seen what's going on, but this time was different. This time it was your show.
Yeah.
So how is it different? Like,
that's a great question. Like, so, that was probably one of my most fun reflections, because like I have been to other shows and I've helped out at other shows. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things for me was I couldn't get over how much free time I had. It was like, honestly, on Saturday, it was like 1:30 on Saturday. And I was like, can I come downstairs?
You start pacing back and forth.
Can I come help with something? Because I was literally like, I had so much time, but I'm so grateful for that time, because those spaces in between, those are the spaces that matter.
Yeah.
Those are the spaces, exactly, when I'm in my hotel room alone and I'm, prepping my bag for the photo shoot or prepping this or just quietly sitting there. Those are the things that really matter. And I think for me, the difference obviously going to other shows to support the team has a certain energy, and and helping out with the WBF has a certain energy. But the difference between that and this one was obviously the fact that this was my show. This was
about you
showing up and being ready. And so, it was complete polar opposites. The one thing I'll say is that I was so surprised. I was like, I didn't get nervous one time.
That's awesome.
Like, no, there wasn't like night before nerves or whatever. Again, because we talked a great deal about imagination. I've been teaching imagination since I came home on Sunday to all my groups and all my clients, because I imagine the moment so well that that whole, I keep using that language, game day, but I was like, it's game day. This is what we've been prepping for. This is what I've been ready for. So now it's just about enjoying every single moment. Yeah. And I did, and it was from start to finish.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's funny because we talked last time about how women specifically a lot of times don't put themselves first. Mm-hmm. So how was it for you, just blocking everything out and this entire weekend being about you?
Yeah, it was fun. I practice what I preach on that regard, right? That's what I do, is I teach women how to do that. So, I'm pretty good about that on a daily basis myself. But there was it was interesting because as you guys know, and our team knows, a lot of my kids all support and help out with the WBFF. So they were there this weekend. And they're habituated to being able to come and ask me, where do I need to be? What do I need to do? Et cetera, et cetera. And this weekend, I just I think on Friday morning, just before I went into the photo shoot, I was like, Mama's out. Don't message me. If you need something, go talk to on show day. I was like, go talk to Allison, go talk to Lais, ask questions, but I'm out. I'm out, and of course, they still, I think this is the part where a lot of moms can appreciate, they still habitually messaged me.
Right.
And that was where I had to catch myself about not taking ownership over whatever their issue was, right? If they were confused on something, I was like, well, instead of me trying to solve the problem, it was like, you have to go and talk to someone, right? Because I really wanted to honor my moment, and really I worked so hard for that moment, and I didn't want to be taken over by normal life stress. My husband went to get into the show and they couldn't find his ticket, and and of course everybody texts me
right,
but we can't get into the show, and I'm literally standing in my bikini about to go on stage, and I had checked my phone by happenstance, and I was I went with the nobody messaged me, I'm done, I'm out, but not in a negative way.
Right.
Yes. And it was really about look, for 24 to 48 hours, this is my time, and I need you to respect that. I need you to know that I poured everything into this moment, and they were really great. They respected it, and there wasn't any issues. But I think that every mom, every woman needs to know that taking 24 to 48 hours for yourself. The thing is that it doesn't diminish you; it elevates you as a parent. Yeah. I don't know. I know you guys, because we've talked about it in our team. I've got a fire in my belly from this weekend, and that energy doesn't have to die.
Right.
I'm going on to compete in Worlds, so of course I have something else that I'm kind of directed to at the moment. But even if I wasn't, I think that one of the things that I've tried to infuse into my groups this week is borrow my fire, and use it to ask yourself, what can I do differently? What do I want to do for myself? So, anybody coming off from show, we take that fire and use it as a catalyst, as opposed to being we're back to normal life now.
Right.
Yes. How do you pull in show weekend to normal life? Maybe it's a matter of, every day putting a little bit more effort into the way you look and present yourself, so that you feel a little bit more diva on a given day, and that's just a small example.
Right.
But, I think that there's so much that you can gain from a show outside of just the fact that you're stepping on stage to win or to just show up, whatever the case may be. And if you use it properly, I have felt an exponential increase in myself as a businesswoman this week.
Okay.
And, as and I was doing great before,
right,
but that's never to say that things weren't great before. It's just there's always a next level available to
100%.
you. And so for me this week, I'm just firing on all cylinders, and my job, I consider my job is how do I continue to carry that forward for myself?
100%. So a lot of times, it's so cool to hear what people see on the other side of these journeys, right? Because they'll see the stage pictures, and they see the before and afters, and they see all the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
But what is it like on, like, what was your Friday like? Did you wake up and do cardio? Like, what was Friday like? Because the shows are on Saturday always.
Did I have to do cardio on Friday morning? I can't remember if I did cardio on Friday morning. I don't think so. I think I was completely, no, maybe I did. I don't remember Friday morning if I did cardio or not. But, you know, I mean, I woke up, I checked in, which, you know, is like so funny because I didn't have to check in on Sunday or Monday, but I still did. Because I'm like, it's your habit, right? It's like, we were talking the other day about bookends. It's like the bookend of my day. So Friday, I woke up, I checked in, and it's interesting because for me there was a little bit of a mix of like the shows that I've attended, because my first instinct was like to text you and be like, hey, what are you doing? Do you need something?
Right.
Yeah, she was asking me, she come up to me, do you need something? I'm like, no, do you need something? Like, this is your show.
But I mean, I checked in. I ate my meals accordingly to when they were timed out and when I was supposed to eat my meals. I was due. You know, I felt an immediate pull to like go downstairs to beauty services and just say hi to everybody because now I know everybody there. And there's just an energy, there's a vibe. And you know, like we had our team photo shoot on Friday, and it was like, you can come and hang out, or you come just for your photo shoot. But that's when it all started, right? So it's like I kind of came in and out throughout the day because I was going upstairs to eat my meals, checking in, doing my stuff, getting stuff ready. But you know, Friday was really all about from, I don't know, I mean, it started like 8:30 in the morning till we finished shooting around 3:30. It was all about just being with the team, being glammed up, enjoying that experience.
The shoot was so
helping oh my gosh, the pictures are going to be to die for.
Yeah, we like to, during show weekend, we like to always have time for the team to have photo opportunities, because it's going to be the time when they look the best, right?
Yeah, we like to kick off the weekend that way.
You are peaking for this moment, you're peaking for the stage, so why not take advantage of the opportunity and say, well, let's get some pictures in.
Yeah, and you're not orange yet.
Right. So it's always a great opportunity for the team and for anybody doing a show to get pictures done. And I feel like it always opens up the weekend.
It does.
Because if you wait until showtime to get on stage, then all that is
even
building
get
up.
glam.
Right. All that is building up.
Yeah.
So I think the photo shoot's always like,
It's an icebreaker.
Like
it allows you to already get glammed and pretty, so you already feel like your weekend has started. It allows you to get behind the camera, which is something that people are super uncomfortable with. And even if you've done a photo shoot before, there's nothing like a dentist photo shoot, so it allows a completely different experience. And then you roll into registration, and then you just roll from one thing to the next.
And it sets up your confidence.
Yes.
Right? Like you get that, like,
Breaks the ice.
well, it's game day. Right?
Yeah.
Like game day starts, excuse the sport analogy, but you know, it's the reason that I left the other federation I was competing with 10 years ago was because you go to registration in a tracksuit,
right.
You get your envelope and you're done. And then the day of the show, you show up at 3:00 or whatever time, and there was
time to get on stage
no experience
and,
around it, right?
Right.
Like the WBFF, there's photographers everywhere, there's behind the scenes media everywhere.
It's very glam.
It's
very luxury.
It's like a red carpet event from start to finish, right?
Everything.
And then obviously we went into registration night, which it's so funny because like sometimes I'm almost more excited for registration night. Like I mean, there's something about the feeling of registration night, you know, and I love that moment because I love to connect with people. So for me, like it's an opportunity to connect with, you know, our team obviously, but also the people in the WBFF, you know, in their organization who I've connected with over the last year and a half. So that was an amazing experience for me because I have connected with a lot of them and they know my journey as well. And it was actually kind of like the ramp up to show for me because everybody I crossed, they're like, you know, you're gonna do so well, everything's gonna go great, you know, like, you know, this is your moment, because I've been telling my story for a year.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I call it like this this reciprocity of sharing, right? When I share with the world, what I get back is the energy that's coming back my way, right? And so it's like this ultimate feeder to my own vision. When someone says, oh, you know, good luck out there or whatever, like I recognize that, for lack of better words, that's self-created. Because it was what I put out that I was receiving back. So registration night was just so much fun. Like it was
100%.
I mean,
I think I know that not everybody starts their weekend with a photo shoot, but everyone
We
that's
do.
competing, well, we do. But everyone that's competing does start or kicks off with registration night?
Oh, and let's talk
That's
about
awesome.
Team Forever's entrance.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, it was to die
That's
for.
our tradition.
It was like everyone was like decked out in our team colors, red and black. And
So we happened to be last, which we didn't plan, but the room was filled.
Save the best for last.
All the competitors are there, and then we rolled in black and red.
we rolled out. We were like, it was just amazing.
It's like a game.
It's like it really is. It really is.
Yeah.
And registration night, for anybody watching, is the time of your show weekend where you get your number for your suit, your registration package. That's your itinerary for the show.
You meet everyone.
But what's most common is what she was saying, where you show up in an auditorium somewhere. All the athletes are in their workout gear or tracksuits or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They get their thing and they just move on with their day. And with the WBFF, that is the kickoff to the event, and it is a full gala red carpet event. Everyone is dressed up,
Yes.
and that's what really kicks it off for everyone.
Yeah.
So the weekend starts there, and honestly, that is where everyone starts the judging process.
Yeah.
Because ultimately,
That's the very first impression.
If you are an athlete competing with this federation, it's never just about the look on stage. It's about all of it, right?
All of it.
So how you show up to registration night is part of the package.
And everyone at registration is going to be at the show. So like obviously Allison's there, but like anyone that's going to be sitting in the judges panel the next day is already there, and they already know that they're judging. So
And this is like,
it's your chance to introduce yourself in the best way possible.
a shout out to you guys, because this is one of the things that I think is just so standout about us. Like, you're like, when you do our color coordinating, like you're always like, and it's red,
Not burgundy.
not burgundy, not this wine color. It's red, right? But it seems like
makes me sound like I'm such a bitch.
no, not at all. It's because, but it's,
I mean, whatever.
but it's true though, right? Like, because if you think about it, red comes in, and this seems like such a small detail, but so I used
all
to.
the details.
I used to
matter.
work as a creative director for a fashion magazine. So for me, my eye on all that stuff, like if my eye's on it, you know that the people who are watching, their eyes are on it, right? And so it seems like a small detail, but burgundy and red are not the same thing. And if you're walking in and you got somebody in persimmon and someone in red and someone in burgundy and someone in wine, it no longer has that cohesion.
Exactly.
And like
the whole point of matching and having colors.
And like we were like bang on, like and we always are, because you guys coordinate so well.
Yeah.
And like I like, because of the fact that I see everything that goes on behind the scenes with all that stuff, like I appreciate it so much, because I've seen teams come in where it was kind of like, this color and this color, but there's a lot of ranges of the color blue and purple and red and pink, right? And so you like the judges might be watching, but in the meantime, we as a team are feeling.
Right.
Exactly.
And when we're walking in like
why.
that, we're feeling on top. Like we got these amazing pictures coming up the stairs, right?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Those pictures coming up the
I'm
stairs.
so sad I wasn't there for that.
Oh my gosh, they were just like to die for, right? And it's just like, there is nobody who was in the hotel who couldn't have noticed us.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, like about the details. Like I know like it's small details, but it's like all the small details matter when it's something this big.
Totally.
So it's like whether it's a small detail of the shades of the color, or the outfits that you're wearing for this, or the accessories you're wearing for that, or like you always talk about with the posing, like if you have a finger that's sticking out, like it's not about it being overwhelming, but like every detail matters. And when you pay attention to the details, then like you said, you feel it.
Totally.
The way you feel about how you're showing
100%.
up completely feels different.
100%. I mean, I think I must have bought like 5 different pairs of earrings for my bikini suit, because until I found the right ones.
Yeah.
Because there's like one small thing that was off about it.
Yeah.
It's always interesting, because when people first get started on the journey to the stage, they want to worry about the details. When the details don't matter.
Right.
It's the basics.
At first,
And
the details don't matter.
they kind of use
Water.
the details of, what shade of red is it, to hold them back
Yeah.
when we need to execute some bigger.
Right.
And that's why
the
having
bigger
details are
things,
later.
right?
That's
Yeah.
why having leaders is like, so I think I got onto my coaching kick last time when I was here, but I'll get onto the coaching kick again. So I actually had a lot of people come up to me afterwards on Sunday and start conversations with me. And I had this whole conversation with someone who was actually looking for a coach. And of course I referred him to Team Forever. But, you know, the point that I was making is that, like, it's not your job. It's not your job on the team, like for our team members, to worry about the details, because they have to trust the leaders.
Right.
Right. And I think that that's what, like, and this is another thing that you guys are great at. Like, you don't need to think about that right now. I've got you, you know, and when the timing is right, Lais and Raph are going to tell us. And that's what, like, I think that that's one of the things. And I get that when you first start on a journey, it's hard to trust that process.
Struggle with that.
But, you know, I think
they
that
want to control it.
Yeah, and I think that as our team grows, though, like, I mean, we like represented this weekend, but as the team gets bigger and bigger and bigger, what we have is like the people who've been around for a while who get to feed that information to the newcomers. Like, you don't need to worry if Lais has not posted about a photo shoot yet. You don't even need to be asking the question. Right. It's one of the reasons I do my very best to avoid questions, because I'm like, if Lais and Raph have not told me yet, I don't need to know yet.
Right. Do you find it interesting how hard it is to let go sometimes?
Especially when you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Right. Like
you're brand new at this and you want to control something you know nothing about.
Right. Yeah. You know, obviously over this much time, it's interesting to observe how difficult it is to let go, even when you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And it isn't until that moment that you completely let go that we actually start working.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
because you don't allow us to do our thing.
Yeah.
If you're trying to hold on too tight and control and think for yourself and plan ahead, like
you know, it speaks to the human psyche.
I was going to say, do the brain stuff.
The brain stuff. Do the brain stuff. I mean, it speaks.
We should have like a bell. Brain stuff.
Brain stuff.
It's you guys.
It speaks to the human psyche.
Because I always tell them, like, do the science stuff.
It speaks to the human mechanism of control, right? When we think that we have the brain seeks predictability. The problem is that what we're seeking predictability around is often the stuff that we can't control.
Right.
So the predictability that we can control is the consistency of simplicity of showing up today. I can't create predictability around tomorrow even. All I have is this moment right now. And I think that one of the things we do, and it's kind of what I was talking about last time, is that we have so many ingrained fears and worries and stressors and anxieties in us that's actually what's driving what we're trying to create predictability around, as opposed to trying to create predictability around the things that we can control, like showing up today and drinking my water. And, like, you know, on day one, like, if, like, let's just say, for example, Miami is 12 weeks out from now. I don't know how Miami 20. Miami's 20 weeks out from now. Like, there's not one person on the team right now who should be thinking about, like, what color their lipstick's going to be.
Right.
Like,
or
that's
their
just
outfit,
an example,
or their
right? Like,
or their bikini or anything.
Yeah, like, what you have to think about then is, like, what I'm eating my meals, drinking my water, getting my steps, and training, right? And that's it. And when you hire, like, I'm a big believer, like, I get it. There's some really shit coaches out there.
Yeah.
Like, there is, right? But, like, if you're with Team Forever, you've got the best, right? So if that's the case, like, don't try to. You hired someone to do a job. Let them do their job, and you show up.
I've talked about that several times.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever see somebody hire their mechanic and they jump in under the hood with them.
Right. Except for my dad, maybe. But
or
plumber.
you're at the doctor and it's like, well, I think it's this. I'm like, well, really, do you think it's this? Maybe it's this.
Yeah.
You don't go back and forth, right?
Yeah.
But I think that because exercise and food is
everyone knows what to do.
Right. It becomes so easy to have an opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times all of those opinions are the things holding you back, because you know, ultimately I think that there's a lot of things that work, right?
Yes.
If you can be consistent and you can be compliant, you're going to get an outcome.
Yeah.
But I think that until you get to that point where you feel comfortable enough to be consistent and compliant, is where you will actually see it happen.
100%. You know, as you were talking, I was just thinking about, like, information is everywhere, and I was thinking, like, knowledge is power, but you got to be careful what power you're using that for, right? Because I think, you know, obviously it's so anybody can go online and Google, like, macros.
I say it all the
training
time.
Program, right? Like, knowledge is great, but, like, there are clients of mine that I've actually put on, like, podcast sabbaticals. I'm like, you are not allowed to watch any more podcasts,
right? Because
you watch 5 podcasts a week, and that means you have 5 different perceptions in a given week what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So stop listening to stuff. Like, I have this, like, for me, you know, when we started posing together, you know, when I start coaching with someone, I turn out the rest. I don't even like look. I don't want to know what so-and-so's doing for their posing or so-and-so's doing for I turn it off because I don't want to, it's that whole, I can't remember all the things we talked about because we talked about so much last time we did the interview, but it's that whole control your influence.
Right.
Right? Like if I have influence coming into me, don't act like you're confused because you're confused, but you've watched 5 podcasts on how to get ready for stage.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now you have 5 different opinions.
Yeah.
And now what you've done is you've fed that narrative of scarcity and fear that you're not going to be ready.
Yeah.
How are you possibly going to pick what's going to go? So like you hire a coach and a team and you step into the journey.
And then you just do.
It's so hard. And I get it because, I do mindset. So I understand how hard it is, but you got to turn off the frontal lobe and you just got to execute.
And you can go, and you can go anywhere. Like you said, you could, like these days you could Google it, but back in the old days where I'm from, you could read a book, right? Like back in the day, you go Barnes and Nobles, like there's sections of different diets.
Yeah.
And you can make an argument on how effective they can all be.
Sure.
I think that the challenge is that when you go do that, the person that wrote the book doesn't know you and doesn't know what you've been through and what you're going through and all
What
the
your
little
day looks
nuances
like
about what
and
your
what your
day is like and what your
patterns
life is
are.
like.
Yeah.
So while the advice might be good, it just may not be applicable to
There's
you.
no one size fits all.
Right,
We do together.
So-
We spend a lot of time together.
So I think that when you are working with somebody, that's part of the process, right? Like, well, what's your day like?
Yeah,
You know,
100%. It's all different.
Because
But back to the information, I feel like everyone that needs so much information they use it as a crutch to just not do the work.
Yeah.
It's almost like I need to know the facts. I need to listen to this and I need to read this and I need to ask this. And it's like, you're not going to know what he knows. Like, it's not your job. Like the same way that if a plumber shows up here, I don't know what the hell the plumber knows. Just do your
but
job.
like I said, we don't
That's
do
it.
that for other things,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I think that maybe we should, right? Maybe if we're going to go take a flight somewhere, we should let me see how a plane works.
No,
That
you
was-
get on the fucking plane and
That
go
would
where
give
you need to
me
go.
Right? Like,
intense anxiety.
we just don't
Oh
do
my
that
God,
for
same. Don't even.
We don't do that for
But even if
anything
you
else.
call a plumber here, you're not watching and being like, okay, so I have like 100 questions about what you're doing.
Or
how
hey,
you're
I see
doing
that
it.
you're sticking this and that.
Yeah.
I saw on Google that maybe if you did it this way.
Yeah, so it's like all the people that want the information are just avoiding the work.
And it makes sense, like again, the psychology of the human mind, it makes sense. Like people, what people are looking for is certainty. And I think that that's one of our greatest deficits is that we try to gain certainty and you can't. Like there's the only thing that you can be certain of is that there is no certainty. The greatest guarantee is yourself.
Mhm.
And that means showing up for yourself. It's like, we're in Central Florida and it's like rained like every hour on the hour of like just this
So
morning.
annoying.
I mean, I'm using the weather as an example. Like this morning, I was like going to call my son and say, today you have to come cut the grass. And like 30 minutes later, the sky opened up and now the grass is wet and you can't cut the grass, right? You can't control the end result any more than you can control the weather, except for in your daily actions. So if it comes down to your daily actions, create your certainty by just showing up. Like one of my kind of like go-to mantras, and you can steal it, you can use it because it's one of the ones that's really powerful for me is, do I really have to ask this question right now? Like, do I really need to know the answer? And I do that in business. I do that in my, my training and my life. Like, do I need to know this now? And if I don't, if there's not something imminent that I need to know it now, I won't ask the question. I've conditioned myself to do that because what ends up happening is you spend more time asking questions than you actually spend doing the work. Mm-hmm. So I turn it off and there's a certain level of trust. You obviously have to trust in your coaches, but also in yourself that that if it's important, it's going to come back around. Right. Like, even thinking about like my cheat meals after show, like a week and a half out was like, no, not necessarily. I don't need to think about that right now.
Right.
The only reason I was thinking about it was because I was fantasizing about the cheat meal after the show. And it was a distraction. Like no matter what, like now it wasn't enough of a distraction to take me off course because I've been doing this for so long. But you and I, we both know that is enough of a distraction to take someone else who hasn't been doing it offline a little bit, and before you know it, they've eaten an extra meal, or whatever the case may be, right? So it's always about bringing it into the here and the now. And every single day, myself and with all my clients, every single morning, I set intentions. And every single morning, I always say it's not about just I'm going to drink my water, I'm going to do this, but like look at your day. What's a priority today on both mindset and execution?
Right.
And plot on a daily basis, not on a let your coaches handle long term while you handle the short term. Is what I
Right.
always
You
tell people.
execute daily.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree with that 100%.
And I think that if you allow the person that's supposed to be helping you to do what they're supposed to do, you move further faster.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
You posted something the other day that I thought was so like on point, which I mean, all your posts are on point because we think the same way, but you said something like stop interrupting your process.
Mhm.
And I think like that is so powerful because every time you ask questions, every time you program hop or every time you coach hop, whatever the case may be, you're interrupting your process. You're slowing down you getting to that finish line. You know, the only way, I always tell people, the only way to fast track your results is to do today.
Yeah.
That is the shortcut.
Do
Do
it.
today.
Do
Do
it.
today and then do tomorrow and then the next day and the next day.
Don't
That is the way
interrupt
that you're gonna speed up your process.
Don't interrupt it. Don't second guess it. Just do it. Carry on.
So back to Friday night.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Registration, you get your number. What was your
I
number?
lost my number.
Oh no.
I know, 426. I lost my first badge. I was the last one to leave the dressing rooms on Saturday night, and I had so many things I was trying to collect, including my dress that was trailing, and I lost my number somewhere. But that's okay.
That's
Okay,
okay.
you'll have plenty more.
I came home with other things.
Exactly.
So the evening continued for you?
Yeah. What did I do after that? I came up to your room. We hung out for a little bit. Yeah, and you know, this is where I actually on Friday night I kind of tapped out earlier because I was just bagged, and I knew that the day was going to be a long day. And I was competing in 4 categories, which meant I was going to be on stage 8 times. And I was like, you know what? I need to like really get my rest and so on and so forth. And also, I needed to appreciate like coming down before going to sleep because my adrenaline crashed only yesterday. Like I've been running, that's why I'm so tired today. But I was running on so much adrenaline, and I knew that if I didn't go and decompress, I wasn't going to be asleep till 8 o'clock. So I think I was probably in my room around 11 o'clock. And from 11 o'clock, I just kind of laid in bed. I actually took the time to, you know, scroll Instagram and see what everybody was posting and just kind of get like, that was like the
winding down.
Yeah. And then I just fell asleep like a baby.
Awesome.
That's
And
what I
then
did.
you wake up Saturday and it's show day.
It was show day.
Did you have, since you've been imaginating all, did you have a thing mapped out for how your day was going to start? Did you have anything in place like, all right, I'm going to start like this and I'm going to go?
Plan or a ritual or something.
You know, interestingly enough, I built different little rituals into show day. I have like a bunch of different, now I officially have different like things that I'm going to carry through to all shows. But you know, I think that I didn't have a specific thing for show day because show day was a representation of every other day in my cut, which is wake up, weigh myself, take pictures, check in. And so, and a weight instruction, which is like exactly what I don't do anything without instruction. So that's exactly what I did. I woke up, I checked in, and I waited instruction. It's interesting because normally I am incredibly methodical about planning out, okay, what am I going to do here? What am I going to do here? What am I going to do here? But I knew I had like 2 things I had to be mindful of. I had hair and makeup at 10.
Okay.
And I had to be ready backstage at 3:30. And that was like the only thing I had. Like it was crazy, right? So, and in between that, I wanted to practice posing and stuff like that. And so I didn't really have a sequence of anything else. I woke up, I did my check-ins. I think
you stayed the course.
I did. Stay the course.
What a concept!
Did everybody pick that one up? Stay the course. I stayed the course, yeah. And you know, and I think that the biggest thing that I adopted on show day was just go slow. Just go slow and not rush around like I gotta get down to makeup and I gotta get here, I gotta do this. And I ended up like just kind of like buzzing around and going talking to people and just really enjoying it. And I mean, I was down in hair and makeup for 10 o'clock and got my makeup done and just like really just enjoyed every single moment.
I think that's one of the themes of the weekend. Like everyone seems to have enjoyed the weekend, which is all we ever want for everybody.
That's it.
Like
That's all that matters.
You know, I know that there was some other competitors who were like literally flying in on Saturday morning, and I can't even fathom that. Like I am like, I told all my clients like on Tuesday, I'm like, I am done till next Tuesday. Like I mean, I connected with them, but calls, coaching, like I turned off my world for those days because when you work so hard for something and you invest in something with time, energy, and resources, why wouldn't you want to do that?
You have to show up fully.
Yeah.
Give it your
So
all.
I was surprised I was actually like really surprised with how I wasn't more nervous or anxious, and I think that just comes from, I think that comes partially from imagination, but also partially from being prepared.
Yeah.
And you can only control, like I kept, like everybody was like, oh my God, you're for sure gonna get your pro card, and like for 2 weeks people were telling me that, and I was like, don't say that, because there is no for sure.
Right.
The only for sure I have is up until the moment I when I step on stage and I perform.
Mm-hmm.
But after that moment, there is no for sure.
Right.
So like I just kept doing what I needed to do in the moment, and that's what the best thing you can do.
And let's talk about, again, for anybody watching. So you did mention you did 4 categories.
I did.
So there's multiple categories that people can compete in the WBFF. Anything from bikini to transformations to men, fitness. Like there's a bunch of different categories. And we've talked about them before. What categories did you?
So I did 35 plus and 40 plus in bikini and in fitness.
Okay.
So
Inside of every category, there are also subcategories like height, age, that kind of stuff.
Right. So I did 35 plus and 40 plus in both of those categories.
Okay. And the difference in categories for anybody watching?
Oh, you're asking me. Let me tell you. Fitness is leaner and more muscular and harder, and bikini tends to be more soft than I think that's the basics of it, right? You probably know better than I do.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did he ask me? Why is he asking
I'm
me
not
that
sure why
question?
he asked me that question. That's my basis of it.
So you have 4 different times that you were going to come out on stage
In my bikini.
in your bikini, okay, and then you come back out
In my evening gown and my theme wear.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome. So what was that like being backstage? Backstage, I asked specifically because once you're on stage, you're by yourself, and it's your time to shine.
No, backstage was the best. Okay, so if I contrast it to my first shows that I did 10 years ago, and this is why I'll just be blunt. I've never been much of a group person. I lead groups. I don't join groups, but not because I think myself better than anybody. I'm just not usually. I'm very independent. I like to do things on my own. I'm not afraid to do things on my own. But the number of times I've said to my husband this week, like, oh my gosh, I love our team. Like, I love our team. And it changes the game, because my first show, I was backstage by myself.
Me too.
There was no one there. I ended up getting bikini stuff, tan on my bikini. I was stressed out. And I actually think that that's part of the reason I lost interest in competing, because I was isolated and I was alone. This was a totally different ball game. Like, our entire team, and we had 12 competing this weekend, so we were 11 girls backstage, because the other one was a man. But we were 11 girls backstage. We were all in the same locker room, or dressing room, with these like little lights, and it was so glamorous. And it was just like, so I got on stage 8 times, which meant I wasn't as backstage as often as somebody who's getting on stage once.
Right.
But I'm telling you right now, for the people who got on stage once, that backstage experience was probably even more important than stage, because
it's my favorite.
You're not back there waiting for the time. Like, they're talking and they're playing and they're doing TikToks and they're laughing and they're singing and they're helping each other. And it was just like, that was where
that's the event.
It is. It is. It really is.
And it gets interrupted and you have to walk on stage.
It was so.
Well, it's funny, because I left the weekend, and one of the things that I told everybody, it's like we build up to this weekend, because we build up to the weekend, and there's so much excitement and there's so much fun going on that it's almost like that solo time on stage interrupts the flow of the weekend.
100%. By the way, side note, I don't have a 12 o'clock anymore, so we're good.
Oh, I was just saying, we have 5 minutes.
No. I don't have a 12 o'clock. I got canceled. So I forgot to mention that at the front. For me, no, I can.
We're all. I'm looking at. I'm looking at all the time.
I have no time frame, so I'm good. For me, I actually found myself at certain points thinking, like, what am I missing backstage?
Yeah.
Because I was out there so often. I was like, what was I missing backstage? But the second to backstage is standing in line. Because that's the second,
Yes.
right? Like you're all lined up, and it's so fun.
And you're talking, you're a
Obviously,
little nervous, you're dancing.
I saw your pictures of Orlando way back when, so I knew what the hallway looked like, and it's like the lighting back there is so cool, right? But we're all standing in line, and so the chances are you're not standing beside people you know. Like
Right.
for me, it just so happened, it was so fun because one of our team members was going out before me, and I'm the person who likes to reflect stories, like their people's journeys. So I was like, I said to Julie, I was like, did you ever think you'd be the first one walking out on stage in a fitness competition? She's like, oh, hell no. But that was such a moment. Like when we were about to do the walkout and Julie was in the lead, I was like, did you ever think you'd be doing this? And she's like, I didn't even stop to think about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because I like to do that. I like to kind of say, did you ever think? So, but it was fun because we're backstage and I think sometimes there's this image about fitness competing that there's a cattiness. And
there usually is.
But the it's different.
Yeah.
I don't know what
it's the first thing, after my first show, that is the first, after I said to him, there's got to be another woman that we can take to do this. My second thing was, I am so shocked. That was my biggest surprise at how nice everyone was and the camaraderie backstage. Because
100%.
my first show I went by myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody back there. And I made so many friends. I met people in hair and makeup, and then I met them again backstage, and we met more people backstage, and then we shared donuts, and it was that backstage experience was so fun, even when I didn't know anybody.
100%.
Even though everyone's nervous, everyone's in it together. And it's not catty at all.
That's
That was my biggest surprise.
I think that Allison and Paul Dillette, who lead the organization, for those who don't know, I think they set that as a preface at the start on registration night.
Yeah.
We're all here. We're not going to beat each other. You're going to beat yourself.
Yeah.
And it shows up. I mean, I'm sure that there is some of that. I didn't see any of it.
There always is a little bit, but it's not that present.
When I came out, when I put on my theme wear, and there was other women there with their theme wear who technically were each other's competition, and there was no oh my gosh, look at her theme wear, it's better than mine. It was everybody was oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Tell me the story. I heard so many stories backstage about why, because I love to ask people, why are you doing this? And one of the women told me that she, her and her husband have been trying to have a baby for 3 years, 3 years of infertility, had done in vitro, had done this, had done that, and all that stuff, and they just decided to stop trying, and that this was her reclamation of her body. I get goosebumps every time I tell that story, but the reason I'm saying that is because every single person backstage has a reason why they're doing it on stage, and it's never it's never because because I want to be the best in the world.
Right.
It's not
It's never
it's never that. There's always something so much deeper behind it. And when a couple people asked me about the inspiration for my theme wear, and I told the story and I explained it, and and I think that that's so important because it's a representation of the journey. And I think that you can weave that into so many different aspects of it. So backstage was just
it's the most
it was so fun. After the show, everybody's I got Doritos, I got cupcakes, and everybody was sharing food. It was just such a blast.
It's so much fun. It's my favorite part.
It is, again, one of the things that we try to inspire everybody to look for. Because everyone is so nervous about their moment on stage when they're by themselves.
That they miss the rest.
That they miss the rest.
Totally.
And it's the one thing that, as I talk to everybody, after the show, they had such a blast this weekend. And while everybody had amazing transformations, right? Those moments are the moments that they miss,
Yeah.
And it's just one of the things. It's hard to convey to somebody when they're starting, when they say, listen, I think I want to do that, right? Yeah. You're going to have a great time backstage.
Yeah, right?
Am I going to be ready?
Yeah.
Am I going to look okay?
Well, it's the whole, even we were driving home on Saturday after going out dancing, because we went dancing as a team. And as we were driving home, I very purposely sat in the back of the truck because I wanted to just kind of gather my thoughts for a few moments. I picked my spots of where I want to sit. And I sat there watching, we had a dance party in the car. If anybody watches my Instagram, you saw it. There was craziness going on in our car, but I say that to say the celebration did not stop.
Right.
And here we are Wednesday, and our group chat we're still celebrating. We're celebrating the transformations and the pictures and the moments. And inside our group, on Thursday we started this hashtag current status to update. What are you doing? Where are you at? What's going on? And somebody posted on Sunday, like, what was your high moment and your low moment? Like, it really is that full experience, and not just the isolation of, okay, gonna compete, get off stage.
Yeah.
And I know we keep coming back to that, but I think it's because it's so important.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think all of that is a result of the process, right? Of the result of the journey.
Who everyone becomes, everything
Who
they
you become as a
experience,
result of all of
the
this.
bond we all create together.
Right. I think it's just critical that if anybody's considering doing this in any way, shape, or form, that you really take the time to immerse yourself in the journey itself,
100%.
because that's how you're going to get the most out of it.
Yeah.
The dieting, the training, that'll give you the abs, the tight legs, and all that stuff. But who you can become as a result of going through this process is in the journey.
Yeah, 100%.
But let's not dismiss the stage time. So
was like,
how did it go?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to do it again. I'll be honest, so I competed in 4 categories. That meant I had 4 walkouts in my bikini and posing. And the first round, I was like, I did feel like, I wasn't nervous, but I felt that like adrenaline dump before I went on stage. Yeah. And I was definitely a little trembly, which I think is just normal, right? Yeah. I think the best of the best will get that way. But man, when you say there's nothing like it, there is nothing like it. Like that, just the vibe, the energy. By the time I actually watched back yesterday, because my son who runs media, he got some footage of me on stage, right? And I actually watched one of my walk-ups, and I was like, man, I owned that like a boss. I was like, well done, coach, for teaching me how to walk in heels on stage. But like, I remember that energetic vibe in that moment, right? And it was interesting because I remember when we were doing posing, and I was just like, I'm just like such not a smiler. Like, I don't like smiling forced, like it just doesn't. But I remember thinking to myself that, what, I bet you that when I get on stage, it's going to come naturally because I'm feeding off the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's exactly what happened. Like, it's exactly what happened for my bikini category. I wanted to get on stage and represent that one with a little bit more lightheartedness than my other one, which was a little bit more fierce. Right. And that's exactly, I was there, I was present, so I felt that engagement with the audience, and I just sunk into it. Like, I can't wait to do it again. Like, literally, I got off stage, I'm like, let's go, it was like 4 categories, that wasn't too many.
and obviously, if you're watching and you haven't seen, how did it end up?
How did it play out?
I am going to say this because I actually walked into my gym this week and I was like, I am going to own bragging rights for 1 week. Because I'm not much of I'm not a person to triumph, but I will also add this, that it went exactly as I imagined, which is, we've talked so much about imagination. I took first place in 40 plus and 35 plus fitness. Yeah. I won my pro card in 40 plus fitness, and then I took 3rd place in both categories in bikini, 40 plus and 35 plus.
It was I want to add, because if you say you have to imagine, and people think that that's all they have to do. She imagined, but she was her fucking ass off.
Imagination has to be action.
Imagination is not powerful enough.
I'm so glad you said that.
If not,
oh my gosh,
I'd be freaking.
Yeah, and I speak out about this all the time because I'm like, I'll just be direct. I cannot stand the people who are like, you got to manifest.
Just throw it out into the universe. Like, no, motherfucker, that does not work.
I think that one of the best things that I can say, and this is what I kept teaching when I was teaching this week, my groups, imagination will lead action. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you are imagining yourself, it was interesting because just yesterday I was driving home from the gym and I was thinking about show in 6 weeks because I'm already there. Like, I'm already imagining that one. But I was thinking about it and I remembered that my inspiration statement, which we'll get into that right now, it's kind of like a mantra, let's use that, was astonish them, marvel them. Mm-hmm. So that was my inspiration statement leading up to show. Because I had done, for me, drinking my water, doing my macro, that stuff is done. That stuff for me after 6 years of practicing is an easy thing. Mm-hmm. I knew at a certain point I needed to shift my focus mentally into owning the stage. Mm-hmm. And so I shifted into this astonish them, marvel them. And so my imagination started to literally flip around, people gasping and people applauding and people just wowing at the stage presence, right? But because of that, what happened is that my imagination bled into my posing practice. Well, if I'm going to imagine that I'm going to marvel them and astonish them, that means I have to pose more than once a week. That means I have to practice. That means I have to send my videos. That means I have to try the different shoes to find the right shoes, or, you know, like I play with this, play with that. So the thing is that your unconscious narrative, the story you tell is the truth you know. We said that last time, right? Whatever you're imagining and telling yourself is going to bleed into action. So, I mean, and that's just the way it works. So if you're sitting there imagining yourself not being able to resist the donuts on family Sunday morning dinner or breakfast multiple times, eventually you're going to eat the donut,
right?
Because you don't recognize that you're priming yourself with that. Now, the thing is that most human beings are so unconsciously unaware that they don't even know that they're thinking those things. So you have to be practicing imagination on a routine basis over and over and over again. Like don't imagine yourself falling on stage. Imagine, or if you do fall on stage, imagine yourself getting back up and being like taking a bow and keeping on going, right? Like don't imagine an outcome that's catastrophic, because you're going to sink into that. So it's your actions will always follow what is running under the radar in your unconscious mind. So it's not enough just to like have a vision board or have like a mantra. It's not enough to have those ostensibly without taking them internally and really taking the time to identify that language that's running under the surface of what you're really thinking.
Right.
Because that's eventually, like, if someone is constantly self-sabotaging, they're like, oh no, but I have a goals book and my goals tell me that this is what I want.
Yeah.
Your goals are saying that. That's conscious. What's happening unconsciously is a different story.
Right.
So, obviously for myself with years and years of practice of this, like I've kind of mastered all of that, right? But that's what people have to sink into, is recognizing that your narrative is running. Your imagination is running. And imagination, by the way, the other word for it could also be worry or projection or stress. Like if something has not happened yet and you're thinking about it, you're either thinking about it negatively or positively. And if you're thinking about it negatively, worried, et cetera, that's imagination.
Right.
So why would you imagine something that hasn't happened yet badly?
Right.
Like, and the way I teach it is like you're increasing your odds.
Right.
You're increasing your odds of failure or success. And if they haven't happened yet, it's okay. Like, and I think people need to hear that. It's okay to imagine yourself rocking the stage. It's okay for you to imagine yourself feeling good as opposed to feeling stressed.
Right.
And it's so hard for us as human beings to sink into that, like we tend to push away the imagination of the things that feel good, like I didn't like.
Maybe it's like a defense mechanism to not have the letdown.
That you might do that.
Yeah,
and I also think that we live in a world where, celebrating ourselves kind of gets frowned upon sometimes.
Yeah.
And so like, I didn't like publicly talk about this imagination, but like the imagination of kind of placing all the categories the way I did and I hate saying this out loud, and walking off with trophies was an imagination I had, but it was one I kept to myself. But I imagined it, and I knew that in order to do that, you have to back that up now. In order to do that, I got to show up, I got to do the workout, I got to push hard, I got to pose. You know how many times, so I went to the extent of emptying my living room out because we have like half of our living room just has like a chaise longue that we don't use. So I said to my husband like 5 weeks ago, I was like, I recognized that I wasn't posing as often because every time I had to pose, I had to move the couch because I didn't want to pose in a small space. So like 3 weeks out, I'm like, that's it. I'm getting rid of the obstacles in my way to make it easier for me to sink in. So I emptied out my entire living room on that side, just so when the time came for me to pose, I could pose easier. And it increased my posing by 3 times a day. So
and those little things are so important.
100%.
Yeah. 100%.
So I know you've mentioned it a few times, but if anybody didn't catch it, so what's next?
Worlds, baby. Well, so yeah, I mean, obviously next for me in the hierarchy of my winning plans is a crown, right? Which would be the WBFF's next step, right? So that's from the strategic side of that. But if I'm talking about like what's next for me, this weekend was such a level up, and I had this moment the other day while I was driving to get my smoothie, because I got a delicious smoothie the other day. You're thinking, wow, you're so
living on the edge.
But it had whipped cream and all that stuff on it. But when I was driving to go get that, I recognized that it was so cool because I was like, oh man, it's like only going to get better from here.
Of course.
Right? Like I was like, even me who's had all these years as an athlete and as, cutting and prepping and growing and all that stuff, I'm like, I actually for a second was like, I can't even fathom my physique better. but I know that that's exactly what's going to happen because we're going to keep pushing the bar.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for me is better. From a personal standpoint of that, like a better physique, better whatever, stage presence, posing, and all that stuff. But in practical form, that's Worlds. I'll be competing in Worlds in the next 6 weeks.
As a pro.
As a pro, yeah. It's so funny because I was waiting to I didn't know, was I going to be going to Worlds as an amateur or as a pro?
Right.
So you were going to Worlds. That was the game plan.
I was going to go anyways, no matter what, because so that comes to I guess we could talk a little bit about planning and forward thinking, because I think sometimes people have a plan. I went to win, I went to have fun, obviously, but I did go to win. I was after my pro card.
Why is that such a hard thing for people to want to step into?
Yeah, I think people are afraid of saying it, and I mean, I think sometimes there's twofold, right? You don't have to want to win.
Right.
You can go just because you want to. Hold on. There you go. You can go just because you want to have fun.
Right.
Right. And it is your transformation. Now, you could
also go because you want to win.
Yeah. And you have to look at, this is where it has to come to that one size fits one, right? I've been doing this for 10 plus years, if not longer. So for me, I was going to win my pro card because I've mastered the art for me of cutting and prepping and growing. So I was going to win a pro card. So I already knew that if that was my target, if I did not win my pro card, in Orlando, I was going to Worlds to win it. And if I didn't win at Worlds, I would have gone to the next one. That was step one, was the pro card, right? And so I knew that I had kind of if I didn't win it, it was going to be Worlds for the amateur show. If I did win it, it was going to be Worlds for the pro with the pro cards in the pro category. So I already had that next tier in place. And I mean, I have all the tiers above and beyond that as well, but I knew what was coming. So I didn't get to Monday morning and go, wait, what do I do now?
Right.
Because I'm well aware of post-show blues, or post-photo shoot or post-peak blues, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you work so hard for something and then it's done. And we've all watched it where people don't have a plan. And so they fall backwards.
Right. But you see it happen. Somebody's planning their wedding. They get married and it's they come back from their honeymoon.
And they're depressed.
Right.
I don't like using that language, but yes, they're depressed.
It's exactly that. It's that post-peak blues.
Yeah.
You spend whatever amount of time planning this big event. And in this case, for everybody, it's this physique competition.
Yeah.
And then if you don't have something right after, which is why I think people come back from that and be like, now we got to have a baby. Now we got to have a house. Now we got to,
You're chasing.
You're chasing stuff,
right?
Yeah. Instead of planning for it.
Yeah. I mean, I already, so if we're just talking about my own personal vision, I already know my long-term vision. And I think we talked a little bit about this the other day, whether or not I decide to compete again, my better physique would have always been my long-term vision because I love the art of crafting my physique. So I would have always had that. But when I decided to compete, my initial thing was just compete. And then it was oh, well, if I'm going to compete, I might as well go for a pro card. Well, that all kind of got blown out of the, cast aside, because now my eyes are just set on the world crown.
Right.
I don't care if it takes me 10 years. My plan is to win the world title, the world championship 1 year in my division. And that's what I'm working towards. So now if I know that that's what I'm working towards, you kind of backtrack it, right? So I already know, for example, I'm not in charge of my plan. I do what I'm told to do, right? So I already know that if let's just say I place or I don't place in Worlds or whatever happens, the likelihood is I'll go into a growing season afterwards. But I've already planned that, okay, a growing season means, let's just go with the fact that I'll probably compete in Orlando in April at the Pro-Am, in whatever, the next time, right? I already know that I'll be at every single team show and shoot along the way, whether or not, just because I'm not stepping on stage in 12 weeks does not mean I'm not prepping or immersed in the vision, right?
Yeah.
So it's that whole, when we talk about the post-show blues, we do have to be mindful about, and you guys, you always ask the question, who's doing the next show? And obviously that's not just about getting a list, right?
No.
It's about getting people to think, where are you going next? What are you doing next?
Yeah.
Because if you're not planning where you're going, where you're going is happening anyways, right? The days
just
are going
end
to
up somewhere instead of doing it on purpose.
And doing all of this isn't easy, right? But you had to give up everything, right? You had to give up your entire life to prepare yourself for this, right? You had to stop being a mother.
She was so confused. I was like, wait, what?
Isn't that what you have to do?
No.
You have to give up on
Why
life.
are you saying so seriously?
Because because I'm a serious
You
person.
just stop working
I
and
was
being
like,
a
what? You know, so actually, I gave up.
Because that
nothing.
is what people think.
Yes, no, you know, so
I
You
would
can't
do
be a
that.
mom, you
I would
can't
do
work.
that too if I didn't have all
Yeah.
these things.
Kids and
So
work and a husband.
let's do a little list on this one
Mhm.
for a second, so we can put a frame of reference for people. The only things I technically gave up were choices of things like, you know, dinners out that I chose to give up this time. And I'm saying that strongly because you have to appreciate your evolution. 5 years ago, my non-negotiables were, you know, I want to have half a glass of wine every night and I want to have a dinner out every Friday night. But as I evolved, my non-negotiables evolved, right? So I've given up nothing that hasn't been of choice. But when we speak about that, and somebody yesterday was just acknowledging this. Oh, it was actually my husband's powerlifting coach who pointed this out to us, because I don't really recognize it. But to give you the frame of reference, I technically own 3 businesses. My kids moved out, and my kids are 16 and 18. They moved out during prep, so we actually got them set up and moved out and all that stuff. My family, obviously, my family needs were there. My dog got paralyzed, so I had to be a mommy doggy too, a doggy mommy. I have my 2 kids, but also their boyfriends and girlfriends who I care for, and we're also building their businesses. I private coach and I coach groups of women. So all of that inside of the rest of this and building my business and moving forward.
moved.
I moved, yeah. There's probably a lot of other things that I can't think. I had to travel. Like next week, I have to go to Hawaii for 7 days for a client.
Nothing stopped.
No, nothing
Right.
stopped. And you know, it's interesting. Like this is planning, right? Because like, so I'm traveling next week for 5 days, 5 weeks before Worlds. And that for a lot of people would be like, okay, well, I can't prep, I can't do this, right? But I go to the extent of like actually planning my flights around training times. So I leave on a Wednesday, so it's my non-training day. I always make sure I go to the grocery store first. Like there's always a way, and
Right.
I think that's like, you may not know the way, but that's what your coaches are for.
Right.
That's what your coaches are for, to say, prep your meals, do this, do that. There's always a way.
Yeah.
Nothing in my life stopped in the process.
I always, whenever we have, I love doing these post-show interviews because the story is always, I think, more compelling.
Yeah.
You know, as coaches, you know, it's our business, right? So I never want it to seem like we're always promoting something because we're trying to move the
Right.
business forward. Because I always feel like the story is more compelling, and we have so many different stories that
Yes.
you know.
Like you said, everyone there has a story.
Everyone has a story. But one of the things that I always ask is, what do you wish more people, and I say people because it applies to both, what do you wish more people knew about this weekend or this journey itself that is probably holding them back because they haven't, you know, they've told themselves a story about why they can't?
Yeah, I think that the thing that I would want people to really try to embrace is that the ROI on your life is exponentially more than any investment of time or energy that you're going to give in on the way there, right? Because I think sometimes people are like, oh, no, I have to pay money to compete. Sometimes people can get bogged down by financials and stuff like that, or time away from your family. But the return of investment on your life afterwards is 10x.
We're in that process.
Yeah, like it's 10x, right? Like you're never going to be able to understand. And I've seen it, because I've seen it with our team members who maybe are new team members who had never experienced it, and I'm watching them come off the show, and now you know they get it, right? And so you can't necessarily get it before, but you can lean into trust, and if you trust it and just kind of give way to that, because the ROI on life is huge, and it ultimately isn't that what it's all about. You know,
Yes.
like I said, when we kick this off, like I've got a fire in my belly from this weekend. And that fire has poured into my business and my family and my life and my prep. Like technically speaking, you know, I've been prepping since February 22nd. I should be bagged right now. Like should be, based on, you know, common conception.
Right.
I should need a week off, right? When it's done well, that's not the case, right? When you're coached properly. But the other side of that is I'm not in despair about it being over. because I'm taking that energy and I'm like, okay, what am I building now? What am I, how, like I even had a conversation with myself about taking that fire and translating it into business and showing up differently and stuff like that. The ROI on your life is one that will take years off your life. If you're, no, will add years to your life. It sounded wrong. Take years off your age.
Right.
Add years to your life if you do it right.
Yeah.
And not just the show itself.
Now
I
the
think the transformation is very apparent after show weekend because you get to be okay feeling pretty and being out there and doing something for you. Because once you're there and you get that hair and makeup done and you get behind that camera and then you go to registration, it's almost like you're kind of forced to block out everything else. You become, it's like when the butterfly like comes out, you know, but the process, the transformation's been happening in there.
Yeah.
But at that moment when you're done with all of that stuff is when you're able to really see it and come out on the other side. But the transformation is done. Yeah. The weekend is not, in my opinion, what transforms you.
100%.
It's everything along the way.
The icing on the cake.
It's what allows you to see that transformation and act on it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's probably the first time for a lot of them that they get to step into that new person fully.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
They're forced to because
They're
here you
forced
are at
to.
show weekends.
Right? Like you've been
But the
working on this.
transformation's done.
Right. You've been working on this physique for whatever amount of time. You've done the work. You've done all of this. And now you are forced to level up because now you've got to get done up. You've got to get dressed. And on the day-to-day things, you probably wouldn't.
Yeah, you're
and
like,
we've seen this like on like just with the members of the team, right? We've seen the post-show level up in our team, members, right? Where all of a sudden you know people are redoing their wardrobes, and people are wearing
Changing their
more
hair,
mascara. And again, it's not about the ostensible, it's not about the external. But I do believe that when we show up in the world feeling good, we do good, and we pour. And nobody ever says like, oh, I didn't take a shower today because I felt like smelling. Yeah. Right? People, it's usually like, I didn't take a shower today because I don't have time, because I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to be mom, I have to do this, right? Well, like now people are showering. And like, you know, and it is like such a really silly example, but the number of moms that I work with who are like, it's like an inside joke, like, oh, I actually washed my hair today. Right? Like it's an inside mom thing, you know, I brushed my hair, it's a win for the day, right? And so I think that when you look at the journey to get to stage, what you don't recognize is you're accumulating all these tiny habits that are stacking
and
up.
all these wins.
And one day you're like, oh, wait a second. It's not the end of, like, I don't have to like mentally have a breakdown just thinking about drinking water. I do it naturally.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like what I was saying, like on Sunday morning, I woke up and the very first thing I did, like technically I was off for 2 days, but the first thing I did was do my check-in. Yeah. Because it's what I do. It's like eating, it's like breathing. You know, and you don't recognize that all, like drinking more water, moving more, getting your steps, eating healthier, whatever those things
feeling
are.
accomplished because you did do those things at the end of the day.
You're accumulating those tiny habits during the journey that you can use for the rest of your life.
And we do a lot of things along the way as a team to make sure that, you know, everyone has experiences that are already pulling them out of their comfort zone, making them feel good about their milestones, like a photo shoot, and we have team meetings and posing workshops and all that stuff. But I think, and so like I said, you get to show weekend and you're already transformed inside and out. But I think it's the moment where you get to really lean into it and accept it. Like, because I even had a couple girls be like, oh my God, like I feel so pretty. Like, yeah, that's the goal. And we've done a photo shoot before and you've gotten glammed for it before. And you couldn't say that. Right. But now you can, because here we are. You know, so it's what really like completes, I think, that transformation, because I feel like we're ever evolving, not just physique wise, but you know, internally. And so show to show or goal to goal, but it is that weekend where it just all like comes out.
And you know, I think that, you know, when you think about it, you could look at it as like, you know, making a wedding cake with the tiers, right? Like cake, you could tell I just had my 2 days off, right? It's like like you have the tiers of the cake, right? And then the decorations go on. And then if it's a birthday cake, you have the candle that goes on the top, right? So you got to look at it as like tier 1, right? What's level 1? And then what's level 2? And then what's level 3, right? But once you've built that level 1 tier, it's your foundation. Yeah. And that's where, you know, learning how to eat properly, learning how to, like, that's done. And then you put the next tier on and the next tier on. Right. By the time you're done, you know, you have a beautiful cake. But the thing is like, anybody who's an artist can relate to this. Your masterpiece is never done. Right. There's always one more flower you could put on, or one more sparkle you could put on, right? And so it's, I also refer to it as climbing a mountain and like planting flags along the way, right? This is just flag 1. It's not, there is no destination. You know, there's only a destination for those who can't see beyond the imagination of what's possible for them.
Yeah.
So it's
That's
you just
really
got to use the energy and go with
I
that.
tweet that.
It was well said, wasn't it? Sometimes you just say shit.
It's kind of my jam.
So I always say that the stage is not for everyone, but it is something that anyone can do.
Right.
It's not prohibited. Anyone, maybe the amount of time that it takes to get there is different for a lot of people, depending on where they're starting. But I certainly think that it is something that anyone can do if it's something that they really wanted to do. They just have to, you know, make the decision that it's they're at least curious about it, and that's typically where we come in. You know, when that curiosity opens up,
where we come in.
when that curiosity opens up, then, you know, I like to think that we take people from the inception of the thought to the stage.
Yeah.
You know,
And after.
like and after.
And beyond.
So if you've thought about it or considered it, if you have questions about any of it, feel free to reach out.
Let's chat.
We can always chat. Our goal is always to make sure that the journey to the stage is not complicated and not complex, and we want to
And not
simplify it as
overwhelming.
much as possible, and that you enjoy it. And I hope that a lot of what we shared this weekend with all the videos and all that, you know, portrays that it's a really good time, you know, if you
Amazing.
allow it.
Yeah,
If you allow it.
it. It's amazing.
Well,
That's it.
that is it, everybody. I think that this is one of those shows that you should probably share, because it's always great to hear somebody's story. And if you watch our first interview with Carrie, make sure that you kind of like put these together, because they do go together. You know, how she felt leading up to this and the
I'm so
moments
glad
after.
we did both, before and after.
I think it's super important to get both of them, but you never know who gets inspired by this. So if we can inspire just one person, you know,
Yeah.
that'll be awesome.
Exactly.
It's always great. So like, share, tweet, you know, do the
Do
all
the
stuff.
things.
Do the things. Thank you for watching. Carrie, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
We will see you at the next show.